we are. It's the middle of 2020. It's a really bad year for us sports fans. Every single sporting event had to be cancelled due to the virus. But hey, at least he gave us some time to talk about anything else to fill the void, right? We'll start somewhere. Maybe, I don't know, South America. The land of, well, probably everything. Great countries, great views, great cultures. Not only that, they were also huge exporters on many areas. Mainly products from forests like lumbers, fruits, and some other plants.
And we've got through the whole program without once mentioning cocaine. Oh.
But South America's greatest exports are probably their athletes. Brazil and Argentina are the main suspects. They produce some guys called Pelé, a bald guy called Ronaldo, Maradona, Messi, you know, the usual guys. But not only that, Martin Gramatica, Manu Ginobili, and Miguel Cabrera also paved their career in the United States. But in my opinion, motorsports received a lot of rub from them. For years, a lot of South American grabs the podium, won Grand Prix on Formula 1, or even won the world title. People like Felipe Massa, Rubens Barrichello, Emerson Fittipaldi, Juan Pablo Montoya, Nelson Piquet, and probably two of the best men to ever drive in Formula 1, Ayrton Senna and Juan Manuel Fangio. Yet from afar, there is a single man who would claim as the very last South American driver to win a Grand Prix. In a sport where, and I quote from the 5-time champ himself, cash is king. Talent has to go somewhere else just to gain experience, while inexperienced paid drivers are great currency for mid to lower table teams. Granted that the definition of paid driver is lost at this point because, well, drivers also attract sponsors. If the guy is good and marketable enough, some random ass Nigerian prince probably gonna put millions of cash just to put his logo on the bloke's shirt. Then again, we see that talent is never enough. A lot of good young drivers had to abandon their Formula 1 aspiration due to lack of funding. However, there were many great drivers who had to pay their way just to get noticed, like Niki Lauda or Michael Schumacher. Those two are the best examples for it. Some other paid drivers managed to maintain a solid career, while others, well, some were just some random rich guy who blatantly buy a seat for fun, or maybe just some random guy who tried to buy the whole damn company because, yeah, why not? It's fun, I guess, for him. Damn. But there's also a dodgy option: oil money. As an Indonesian, I know full well how does it feel to support a fellow countryman while the only reason that they were there was because of state-owned petrol company. It's a normal scene to see the split of view about the driver itself. Some wanted him to bring the success to his home. Wow, ultimate patriotism, nationalism, wow! While others are just crapping on him because, well, it's the country's main source of income that he's using.
Hope you get hit by a bus today, you fucking wanker.
And here comes our main hero in the story, Pastor Maldonado. He was infamous for being one of the most reckless drivers in Formula 1 history. Thank fuck Mahavi Raghunathan left Formula 2. But he's one of those guys who made the distinction between reckless and fast is in the gray area. He's one of those guys who know how to
send it, or didn't send it?
Yeah,
send it!
But don't know much about race control. These kind of drivers are a lot in the market. Guys like Kamui Kobayashi, aka Mr. Dive Bomb himself, or Daniel Kvyat, who sent bunch of torpedoes on the track,
I almost went to the moon.
or Romain Grosjean, whose pronunciation is so hard, I've spent like 2 hours just trying to do it right, and oh god.
I'm Romain Grosjean.
Anyway, these drivers knew that when their sugar daddy pulled the plug, they're done if they were awful. I mean, look at Kamui Kobayashi, who had to ask for 10 quid donation from his fans just to keep Caterham afloat. Maldonado himself probably summed it up perfectly back in 2012.
What is your biggest fear?
I have no fear.
Me neither.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
These drivers have no fear whatsoever. Maybe if you're quick enough in a bad car, it's a flyer for a big team to pick you up somehow. These guys are trying to get a lot of position on the track because their contractual position is probably not that safe.
But Pastor, you talk about the extra pressure on you in Formula One. Is that why you were so aggressive? Because you knew you had to perform, and
Of course.
and you went over the limit.
Of course, sometimes I was over the limit. Not very often, I need to say. If you look at the records, I made some mistake, no more than the others.
Do you feel the media was too hard on you?
Yes, of course, because I've been catalogued as a paid driver from the beginning, just because I bring a Venezuelan sponsor.
Did that frustrate you?
No, because I'm very, I'm very nice and relaxed about that, because I needed to work very hard to find my sponsors, and not for 1 year, for my whole career, I'm not coming because my father pay and buy the engineer, buy a car, I'm coming because I sweat my position in Formula One.
According to the now defunct website called MaldonadoPenaltyCounter.com, touche, this guy collected 39 penalties in his career, including 88 grid penalties. Out of 96 Grand Prix, he retired from 29 of them. Well, technically 32, but 3 of them were after 90% of the race, so to make it worse, there is actually a blog that lists all of his incidents, and let me tell you, it's not gonna be fun. Well, it's gonna be fun because it's his crashes, whatever, but it's not gonna be fun for me to make, so here we go, I guess. 2011 Malaysian Grand Prix, spins in the pit lane and damaged the car in FP2. 2011 Chinese Grand Prix, spins at turn 6 and beached the car in FP1. 2011 Turkish GP, damaged the car after his second spin in practice 1. 2011 Monaco GP, collided with Lewis Hamilton whilst being overtaken on lap 73. He had to retire from the race, but I'm gonna pause it for a moment. Now, as you can see, this is his first crash with Lewis Hamilton, and you'll see that this is gonna be a recurring theme in this whatever list this is. So let's continue. 2011 Hungarian Grand Prix, speeds in the pit lane and served a drive-through penalty. 2011 Belgian Grand Prix, crashed into Lewis Hamilton, whilst heading into the pits for qualifying, received a grid penalty for doing so. 2011 Italian Grand Prix, spins into the wall coming out of Parabolica during qualifying. 2011 Japanese Grand Prix, runs off at high speed over the grass in FP1. The car stopped on the track shortly afterwards. 2011 Korean GP, hits a bollard entering the pit lane and received a drive-through penalty. 2011 Abu Dhabi GP, received a drive-through penalty for ignoring blue flags. He also received another 30-second penalty for continuing to ignore blue flags. 2011 Brazilian Grand Prix, crashed into the wall on lap 28. 2012 Australian Grand Prix, collided with Romain Grosjean on lap 2. Grosjean is pushed off the track and he had to retire. Meanwhile, Maldonado crashed into the wall on the final lap. 2012 Malaysian Grand Prix, on the very first lap he collided with his teammate Bruno Senna, and later on he literally missed an entire pit box. 2012 Monaco Grand Prix. Crashed into Checo Perez in FP3, he received a 10th-place grid penalty for doing so. He also crashed into the wall at Casino Square in FP3. Meanwhile, in the race, he crashed into the back of Pedro de la Rosa on lap 1. Both of them retired. 2012 Canadian Grand Prix. Crashed into the wall during qualifying. 2012 European Grand Prix. Crashed into Lewis Hamilton when rejoining the circuit and received a penalty for doing so. Meanwhile, Hamilton had to retire. 2012 British Grand Prix. Crashed into Checo Perez on lap 12. He was reprimanded and fined.
Maldonado again. I don't believe why he drives like this.
Okay, Checo, copy.
2012 Hungarian Grand Prix. Crashed into Paul di Resta on lap 48. He received a drive-through penalty. 2012 Belgian Grand Prix. He blocked Nico Hülkenberg during qualifying and he received a grid penalty. He also jumped the start and received a penalty for doing so. He also crashed into Timo Glock on lap 5 and he received another penalty. 2012 Indian Grand Prix. Collided with Kamui Kobayashi on lap 32. He runs off the track and picks up a puncture. 2012 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Collided with Mark Webber on lap 23. 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. Missed the weight check during qualifying and is reprimanded. 2013 Australian Grand Prix. Spun off at lap 25. 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix. Runs off the road, damaged the car on lap 14. 2013 Spanish Grand Prix. Speeds in the pit lane, not a penalty. 2013 Monaco Grand Prix. Collided with Guido van der Garde on lap 1. He also collided with Max Chilton on lap 44. He retired and Chilton is penalized. 2013 Canadian Grand Prix. Spun to the wall and damaged the car in FP1. Meanwhile, in the race, he crashed into the back of Adrian Sutil and damaged the car on lap 7. He received a penalty. 2013 Belgian Grand Prix. Probably my favorite incident of his career. So, on lap 28, he collided with Adrian Sutil and damaged his car. But the incident was on the very end of the track, so he tried to go straight into the pit lane, a la Lewis Hamilton in German GP 2019, but on his way to the pit lane, he crashed into Paul di Resta and he received another penalty for doing so. Paul di Resta had to retire, and this is probably the most interesting crash in his career because in one corner he managed to retire both Force India. Amazing. Next one. 2013 Singapore GP. Crashed into the wall at turn 13 in FP2. 2013 Japanese Grand Prix. Crashed into the barrier in FP2. He also collided with Valtteri Bottas on the last corner of the last lap. Bottas ran off the track. 2013 US GP. Another crash with Adrian Sutil and damaged the car on the very first lap. 2013 Brazilian Grand Prix. Collided with Jean-Eric Vergne and spun on lap 65. 2014 Australian GP. Spun and beached the car in qualifying. 2014 Bahrain GP. Runs off the road and damaged the car in FP2. In the race, he crashed into the back of Esteban Gutierrez on lap 48. He received a penalty while Gutierrez, as you can see, that famous picture. 2014 Chinese GP. He went off-road while looking at his steering wheel in FP1. In FP2, he crashed in the pit lane entry. 2014 Spanish Grand Prix. He crashed into the wall in qualifying. Meanwhile, in the race, he crashed into Marcus Ericsson on lap 1. 2014 British Grand Prix. Collided with Esteban Gutierrez on lap 47. Gutierrez runs off the road with damage. 2014 Hungarian Grand Prix. Collided with Jules Bianchi and spins on lap 15. 2014 Belgian Grand Prix. Crashed into the wall in FP2. 2014 Singapore Grand Prix. Crashed into the wall again in FP2. Why? 2014, USGP speeds behind the safety car and receive a penalty for doing so. 2015, Australian Grand Prix gets hit by Felipe Nasser, kept the throttle open, and spun into the wall on the first lap. 2015, Malaysian Grand Prix picks up a puncture after contact with Valtteri Bottas shortly after the start. 2015, Chinese Grand Prix runs off the track whilst entering the pit lane on lap 34. He runs off the track again on lap 40. Meanwhile, on lap 49, he gets hit from behind by Jensen Button. 2015, Bahrain GP, probably the weirdest start of the race apart from jumping the start. He starts the race from the wrong grid slot, 2 places behind his actual position.
I think my brain just committed suicide.
Later on the first lap, he makes contact with Max Verstappen. Later on turn 11, he runs off the track and lost the position. 2 turns later, he runs off the track again and lost another position.
I think my brain just committed suicide.
2015, Spanish Grand Prix. He makes contact with Romain Grosjean on lap 4 and he damaged his rear wing. 2015, British Grand Prix. He collided with Romain Grosjean at turn 1 shortly after the start. 2015, Hungarian Grand Prix. This is probably gonna be another weird penalty you'll ever see in your life. So, he collided with Checo Perez on lap 19 and he received a drive-through penalty, right? So he served his drive-through penalty on lap 25, but in the pit lane, he speeds in the pit lane while serving his penalty. So he received another penalty while serving his... You get the point. Then on lap 48, he overtook Will Stevens behind the safety car and he received another penalty. 2015, Singapore Grand Prix. He runs off the track and collided with Jensen Button on re-entry, thus damaged his diffuser. 2015, Brazilian Grand Prix. He collided with Marcus Ericsson and received a 5-second penalty.
I think Ericsson hit us.
And the last one, 2015, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso collided with Felipe Nasser and collected Pastor Maldonado, forcing him to retire. Basically, it makes both of his first and his very last drive in Formula 1 ended with DNF. Absolutely amazing. To make it worse, remember when I spoke about oil money? Well, Venezuela was and still is in shambles due to their economy under Hugo Chavez. And after his death, Nicolas Maduro picked it up where he left off and basically drove the country to the ground even worse. I'm not going to talk about the politics of another country. I mean, my own country has its own problem. But I'm just saying, these doesn't look good, especially when your country spent 30, 40, up to $60 million spent on a single athlete. It just doesn't look good at all. Yon Goicoechea, one of the anti-Chavez guy, wrote on El Universal, Maldonado y los idiotas. It's not hard to understand what it translates to, and considering how close Pastor and Hugo were, and how outspoken Maldonado is with politics, it's hard not to see why people craps on him on and off the track. As I said earlier, Formula 1 is a money-based sport and not every car built the same. In the same podcast, he also said that Ferrari eyed him in 2013 and he was so sure that he would get the seat in 2014. But eventually, Ferrari signed Raikkonen instead. So, maybe it wasn't purely his fault. Maybe it's the car.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
Anyway, during his time in Formula 1, rookie Pastor Maldonado paired with Rubens Barrichello on his very last year. Next year, he paired with sort of steady, yet mediocre Bruno Senna. Then, in his last year with Williams, he paired with rookie Valtteri Bottas and a very unreliable FW35 car. He also completed 2 years with Lotus beside Romain Grosjean, one with Renault engine, and the next year with Mercedes engine. Now, before using Mercedes engine, he managed to get into the top 10 8 times out of 77 Grand Prix. That's about 10.5%. With Mercedes engine, the results are more volatile. In 19 races, he managed to snuck into the top 10 6 times, but he retired 9 times. You could literally flip a coin to determine whether Pastor would finish a race or not in 2015. But I'm trying to prove that Pastor, despite having a third chance of retiring before reaching the checkered flag, is actually a decent midfield driver. But he had to deal with an absolute stinker of a car. But that means I have to find someone who actually lists every single race from 2011 up to 2015. I mean, what kind of loser has the time to do that? So I did.
The previous year, 2011, that was my first season in Formula One. We've been as a team, Williams, suffering a lot with a car which was not very competitive. We had, I think we were the only ones of the good teams with the Cosworth engine at the time, and we were missing power, we were missing a lot of things. And certainly for 2012, we put together a very good package, which didn't start as expected. You know, we were okay fighting for the points, but not achieving the targets. And I remember that year I put the car in the top 3 like 5-6 times, you know, during the season, which, to be honest, that was unexpected from the car. And yeah, the third year I got Bottas. Certainly, we were expecting both to have maybe the best car ever in the history of Williams, and we had the worst cars ever, you know, and that was very, very sad. But by the time we start to improve, the other, they were miles away, you know, because they were focusing in development and we were focusing on solving problems.
In his first year at Williams, FW33 used the Cosworth engine for some reason. Cosworth also supplied their engine for 2 bottom feeders in 2011, HRT and Marussia. Good luck with that. After a horrendous start, the technical director Sam Michaels came out and said that their front wing was just absolute garbage. Their rear wing was garbage until Turkish GP, and basically that season was pure trial and error, and more error, and you get the point. In 2012, Williams got rid of Cosworth and switched to a more reliable Renault RS27 V8 PU. On Beyond the Grid, he said that he enjoyed FW34 a lot, albeit Pirelli having some dodgy compounds during the year. Pastor and Senna did really well. Mike Coughlin served as chief designer after serving his suspension for Spygate. Now, I'm not speculating, but you know, FW35 proved to be another awful year for Williams. It was their last year with Renault before jumping ship to Mercedes. The car was unveiled very late. I wonder where I heard that before. Maldonado said the car was undrivable in Australia. Pretty much Alonso during the
engine was going much slower than before. Amazing.
But even worse, the relationship between Williams and Maldonado soured so much that after USGP, Pastor called out his team for sabotaging the car. Of course, after a year, Williams cut him and Mike Coughlin loose. For FW36, Williams signed Pat Simons as chief designer. They also went ahead and finished third in the Constructor Championship with Mercedes engine. In 2014, Maldonado and PDVSA embarked a new career at Lotus, who had 2 great years with Renault RS27 V8 PU. But hey, this is never gonna be a feel-good story, so fuck you, Pastor. New regulation to V6 hybrid, major chassis breakdown in design. The team missed an early pre-season test. Heard that before.
I knew you'd come.
The team also decided to drop any kind of developments because literally any devs does nothing. literally Haas F1 team. The lineup for Lotus was probably every Formula 1 meme favorite pairing too. Grosjean and Maldonado. The car was better, far better with Mercedes PU. But with that pairing, you just can't put them side by side. Grosjean trucked Maldonado twice, one in Spain and the other one in Silverstone. From 9 of Pastor's retirements, 4 came from technical issues. 4 of them were accidents where he became the victim. I know, surprise. And the last one was when he tried to bunny hop a curb. At the end of the year, Renault thought that maybe Mercedes made us look so bad with Lotus getting better with Mercedes PU, so Renault bought out Lotus and Maldonado lost his seat. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Williams absolutely
Stinks.
Go Redskins.
Stinks.
after they broke up with BMW. Several years with Pat Simons and Mercedes PU were years of honeymoon for a new marriage, but their insistence on being independent was just prolonging their eventual death. Meanwhile, Lotus lost not only Kimi Raikkonen, but also their technical director James Allison, also their head of aerodynamics Dirk de Beer. Aside of 2012 and half of 2015, his cars are always horrendous. It's always either unreliable or just flat out underdeveloped. But hey man, what if it's not the car? I mean, it's Williams and Lotus, so they have to be good. It's not. But what if it's just not as good as his driving partner? Well, good question. Now my work is doubled. No. We're not doing this shit again. We're not doing this shit again. You know, when his head is screwed in his place, Pastor is a pretty good driver. I mean, he gave a good enough fight against Rubens Barrichello, against Valtteri Bottas, against Romain Grosjean, and he destroyed Bruno Senna. And we can't really forget that Williams absolutely stunk. While at Lotus, Romain Grosjean rode off a couple of great years with Kimi Raikkonen. When we look back after many years, 2012 was a really weird year for us. The very first MERS outbreak happened. Yes, the same thing like the current virus. One of the most iconic animal in the world met its maker. Definitely not Harambe. A guy literally drops from 128,000 feet and somehow still alive.
Hey Ron.
Hey, Billy.
Whitney Houston died, Neil Armstrong died, the guy from Green Mile died. Hell, the whole world thought they'll die just because some Mayan, Mexican, whatever, that dude forgot to say that, hey, we're just gonna make some new calendar, but let's not tell anyone cause nothing gonna happen, right? Autumn in Spain and the track was burning hot, but Circuit de Catalunya was not the only hot thing on that day. It's the grid I'm sorry.
No grid girls?
Apparently so, it's grid boys again.
Really?
That 2012 F1 season was burning hot too. The first 4 races had 4 different winners, and everyone nags about Pirelli's dodgy tires. Not only on the track, but off the track, tempers are heating up. The newly introduced DRS was still in the air. Blown diffuser, which was used by many teams, has been banned. Bahrain GP almost got cancelled again, but by allowing the Bahrain GP to happen, that means the Pirelli tire was untested on the Sakhir track. Ferrari struggled with their chassis early on in the season. Pirelli promised a better racing for 2012 by switching the entire tire compound like 50 times in the year. The weather was so random that you could expect the Sahara to rain in any moment. Mid-season tests did nothing. Pirelli replied to the critics on tire compound by pointing their fingers on the R30 chassis they used, which was 2 years out of date, yet they were still using that for the early 2013 GP. It's Q3. The hometown hero Fernando Alonso grabbed the early pole. Kimi Raikkonen goes after him, with Checo Perez comes next, who's only to be toppled by Grosjean. But hey, whose car is it around the corner? Pastor said,
"Allow us to introduce ourselves."
And there's only one proper reaction for this, thanks to this guy. 1 minute 22.285 seconds. Literally 0.017 seconds ahead of Alonso. That was oh wait, never mind. Or is it? After the qualifying lap, he couldn't get his car back during the in-lap, thus making him had to start from the very last place.
Can you remember your reaction when you heard that Hamilton had been penalised and that you would be on pole position?
Yes, of course. I said, come on, this is a good chance for my career. Everyone, all the journalists, they were asking me, are you nervous? How you feel? I'm feeling better than ever because I'm starting from the pole,
Making Pastor the first Williams pole sitter since Hulkenberg in Brazilian GP 2010. But hey, he's the quickest guy in the qualifier. Surely he's gonna win, right? Well, not really. Unless you're driving Mercedes in 2019, pole position guarantees nothing. According to statsf1.com, as of 2019 Abu Dhabi GP, there were 1,018 races held, including the Indy 500 and the weird era of early Formula 1, in a span of 70-something years. Yet only 428 Grand Prix had the pole position holder drive to finish first, which means you've got 42% chance to win from pole. And that was just a technical part. Just behind him is Fernando Alonso. He's racing in front of his own home crowd. 2 rapid Lotus drivers were on the second grid, 3 German boys running top 10, and there are 2 wildcards in Sauber Ferrari, Checo Perez and Kamui Kobayashi. McLaren Mercedes also showed promise early on. Jenson Button won at Albert Park, and Hamilton, despite having to run from dead last, is one of the most energetic wonderkid that F1 has ever seen. So, all bets are off.
And I say to myself, it's now or never. I have the chance and I will go for it. I will do more than 100% to get this victory.
The last bloke I'd want alongside me is Fernando Alonso on the grid at the moment. He's so fast away and he's so aggressive down into turn 1. I'd be somewhat amazed if Alonso's not leading, actually, as they come out of T2.
Is this, on the weekend that Frank Williams officially celebrated his 70th birthday, the best present he could ever wish for? A return to the top step of the podium. We have 5 lights on, ahead of the drivers, and away we go here in Barcelona. It's a decent start from Maldonado, but Alonso's gaining on him as Maldonado pushes him on almost to the grass. Raikkonen's got ahead of Grosjean, Perez settling in 5th place there, Rosberg down the inside of Sebastian Vettel is getting swallowed up, but there's Fernando Alonso into the lead by the time they get into turn 2. He's done it again, the local hero, and he's got out into the lead.
I think my people were a little bit down just because they were used to win. They were used to win races, championship. Every weekend we were in the top. Every weekend we were in the podium. But Formula One is not like this. So they were a little bit down, you know. And of course, I was racing, and I to be honest, it's my style. I respect all the other style. But this is my style. Nobody scared me. I always think I'm the best. If you don't think you are the best, why you are racing? You know? Of course I think I'm the best.
So watch Maldonado gently come over and gives him the width of a Ferrari.
The degradation at the time is not the same degradation of today. If you remember, everyone was in troubles after half of the race, and some people were having a lot of troubles by the end of the race. Okay, so I said, okay, now I need to survive with the tires. Now I need to drive very clean, but at the same time quite fast.
End plate, yep.
Oh, it's Michael Schumacher off and into the gravel, head in his hands, and he might have had a coming together with Bruno Senna by the looks of it there.
Oh, sorry about that, Michael. I'm going to have to look into this.
Who's the idiot?
Well,
here we go. Let's see Michael Schumacher running straight into the back of Bruno Senna. Who's the idiot?
Well,
we heard you say idiot on the team radio. Are we right in thinking that was directed at Bruno Senna?
Yeah, you guess so. Well, I don't think Michael would ever say it's my fault, I'm sorry, but...
Where is the Lotus race pace we're expecting?
Well, here's a decent bit of pace from the Lotus down the main straight. Romain Grosjean gets past Nico Rosberg into that first corner.
Past him. He
Easily
left him for dead.
Sorry, Martin, the rain car came getting in Maldonado's way, just holding him up slightly. Already, before he encountered the Indian driver, Maldonado was 4/10 quicker on this lap than Fernando Alonso.
2/10 faster, Maldonado on that lap, the gap down to 1.5.
Pastor Maldonado comes into pit for Williams.
And now that's interesting, it's Williams that are calling the shots now. This needs to be the outlap of his life, so he's got clear air, has Pastor Maldonado, and he needs to spot every braking point, every apex, pick up the throttle sweetly. He's got a chance now to jump into the lead.
And talking of Pic, Fernando Alonso spending so long behind Charles Pic. That's an angry wave from the Spaniard. Can he wave bye-bye to the lead when he comes in for his next pit stop, I wonder? You can see the Williams powering down the main straight. Alonso can only do 100 kilometers an hour. Pastor Maldonado, who just sets the fastest lap of the race, now gets past Fernando Alonso, and he is a long way clear of the Spaniard. The Williams is in front of the Ferrari.
It's very difficult to overtake in Barcelona, so I protect myself where Fernando can attack. He was over me. He was, I think, nearly 1 or 2 tenths behind, so it was tough to contend him.
Felipe Massa with his drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, fellow South American Pastor Maldonado is now 6.8 seconds out in the lead. Now 6.1 seconds behind Pastor Maldonado. 4/10 the advantage that Alonso had over Maldonado on that previous lap. Talking of being frank, I wonder what is going through the mind of Sir Frank Williams at this moment in time. His beloved team that haven't won, of course, since Juan Pablo Montoya in Brazil in 2004.
But I had the control, you know, I was relaxed, I was driving nicely, I had the control, I was leading the race, I was in the top. After the strategy, we overpassed him in the last stop.
Just 3.8 seconds then, the difference.
Raikkonen's going to have to come into the pits, you would think, in a lap or two's time.
Still no Renault Lotus mechanics in the pit lane, and Raikkonen again. This is playing into Ferrari's hands.
It is.
Now the tables have turned, and Maldonado's getting away.
Okay, now we need to back off the pace, keep them behind. We need to save tires.
Save tyres, keep everyone behind. Simple, isn't it, Ted Kravitz?
Well, it is, and meanwhile, a different instructions going to Fernando, which is attack, attack, attack.
I was always used to deliver my 100% and never happy. If I was first, I wanted to lap the second. You know, if I was second, I wanted to to be always for more, you know. And
750 metres down this main straight. Alonso can now attack past Maldonado down into turn one. He's a little too far behind to get by on this occasion, but nudges the curbs on his way through. The gap was 9/10 of a second, now it's 8/10 of a second. DRS is activated once again as through the pollen they sweep down towards turn one, and it's not quite blooming for Alonso on this occasion. Can't get past Maldonado, but if he just keeps on gaining, he's got the laps in which to do it.
Raikkonen's just over 20 seconds behind, or he will be at the end of this lap, 21.5, that is.
Great aerial view of the Williams ahead of the Ferrari, first and second. Williams on their way to a glorious afternoon in Spain, 12 months after they failed to score a single point in the Spanish Grand Prix. I can't think, Martin, of a more popular win in Spain this afternoon for the neutrals than Sir Frank Williams' team, if they can manage to do this. 8/10 of a second was his advantage, only 8/10 of a second.
Right now I'd rather be in that Ferrari. It's got slightly fresher tyres on, it's got access to DRS.
Down towards the line we go, 1.4 seconds now. Maldonado starting to pull away.
Alonso was struggling for traction coming out of T15 there. Really struggling to get the power down. The gap up to 2.3 now. It's Maldonado that's got the greater speed right now. I think Alonso's rear tyres are beginning to give up on him.
As Pastor Maldonado makes his way now down towards the chicane and one more corner after it. In 2012, we had 4 from 4. It's now going to be 5 out of 5. Another different winner. A new winner in Formula One. It's Pastor Maldonado ahead of Fernando Alonso. Kimi Raikkonen's challenge. He came close but not close enough. And down at Williams with their first Grand Prix victory since Juan Pablo Montoya in 2004. They realise why they come racing and why they love Formula One. What a victory for Pastor Maldonado and a Williams team that are back on top, and boy are we glad to see it. Williams' 114th win in Formula One, as I mentioned, the first one for nearly 8 years.
His first crash there of the day, he just crashed into the cameraman, but he had his crash helmet on, luckily.
And then the victory. Finally, the victory. That was something expecting, because I was expecting to win that race. But at the same time, I think no one was expecting this. And I feel the emotions of the people, you know, the emotion of the stands, the emotion of the team. But also, I need to say that all the other teams, they were happy for my victory, you know. All the people were very happy. All the people came to me to say congratulations, you know. Bernie came to me. Everyone was coming to me, you know, because
and Alonso was very complimentary as well.
Yes, of course. We are quite friends, I need to say.
The race would probably forever be known as one of the best underdog stories in Formula One. His career in Formula One might be over. I mean, it's hard to go away from the sport for more than 3 years and not to get rusty. Simply put, Pastor is fast, but not quick. We could admit that at times his race pace was just gone, or some bone-headed move that happened when he just went way too aggressive, or rather than just keeping a safe race, he's trying to push really hard for more points. But I think we could agree that he brought fun to the race. He brought racing to a sport that's starting to lose its edge. I am genuinely and unironically enjoyed his and Kobayashi's driving style. Just bomb down a corner like that damn corner gave you a chance to get a seat for another year. For the memes, also, sure, he stole points from the rich. Well, the rich, mostly Lewis Hamilton, and spread it to the poor. I mean, an oil-backed Robin Hood. What a madman. But for others, especially us, the people who knew that the chances are very slim for our countrymen, just to do something in front of international audience. For others, it's never just a meme. It's never just, oh, this random brown dude finished last again, ha ha ha, lol, get him off, bring him back to his country. No man, these people gave a glimmer of hope. I mean, It's a bit lunatic to make a wish like that, especially the cost for those third world countries. But hey, if it happened before, then maybe there's a slim chance to make it better, right? At the end of the day, maybe Maldonado is a meme, yet Maldonado is also a pastor for a new driver, a symbol of hope for a country you never heard before, finally making their mark with their flag flown on the podium. Until the day happens, well, we'll hope it will happen.
So you love the aggressive drivers, but I put it to you that if you'd been less aggressive as a driver,
yes,
might you still be in Formula One now?
You know, I think not. I think not.
Why were you always so good in Monaco? We'll come back to Hamilton.
Big balls.
Big balls, is that?
Big balls.